First up on the show, amid efforts to negotiate a ceasefire and hostage release deal, Gaza is witnessing an upsurge in fighting, bombardment and displacement. Hamas has called for an independent Palestinian government for non-partisan figures to run post-war Gaza. Hamas's military wing has released a video claiming strikes on Israeli targets in southern Gaza. The video shows a tank being blown up and others burning. In another instance, a man is running away from a tank seconds before the sounds of explosions ring out. Gaza Civil Defense Agency says 60 bodies were recovered from the rubble in one of the fiercest attacks in Gaza's Shujaa district.
It happened around 1 a.m. or 12:40. We were sleeping at the time. We started pulling out people from under the rubble. The martyrs and the injured, there were no ambulances. They brought our neighbor's car and used it to transport the martyrs and the injured.
The strike happened yesterday at around 12:30 at night. A rocket landed and it destroyed the entire area. Not only the neighbor's house. All those who were injured were children and women. We don't have weapons here, nothing. There are only schools used as shelters near us. That's what happened. The ambulances were late to come, so people in the neighborhood used their cars and trucks to transport the injured.
Meanwhile, the US President Joe Biden has warned Israel against occupying Gaza. He asserted that his administration is making progress towards a ceasefire agreement.
6 weeks ago, I laid out a detailed plan in writing. It was endorsed by the UN Security Council, the G7. That framework is now agreed on by both Israel and Hamas. So I sent my team to the region to hammer out the details. These are difficult, complex issues. There's still gaps to close, but we're making progress. The trend is positive. And I'm determined to get this deal done and bring an end to this war, which should end now.
Biden's statement comes after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu claimed that Israel should retain control of the key Gaza territory along the border with Egypt. Netanyahu's claim runs counter to Hamas's position that Israel must withdraw from all Gaza territory after the ceasefire. Meanwhile, the Israeli military presented its probe findings into the kibbutz Be'eri attack that destroyed at least 125 homes. The probe highlights the Israeli Defense Forces' failure to protect the residents. So as we know, the US is brokering another framework deal with Israel and Hamas, but it also has resumed sending 500-pound bombs to Israel. This as Israel has conducted multiple deadly strikes in Gaza, killing dozens. Several thousands are stuck in cities with bodies strewn on the streets and no access to food and water. Here's a report on one of the fiercest weeks of fighting.
Palestinians from Gaza City are once again on the move after Israeli forces demanded they evacuate amid an intense military assault. They are fleeing by any means they can, on foot, in the back of trucks. Mona al-Husseini and her family have a horse-drawn cart. She spoke to Reuters in al-Nusayrat, south of Gaza City.
We've witnessed a lot. Many soldiers stopped us and kept searching us and stopped us for an hour. It's torture. We left the Haidar roundabout 3 days ago. We were besieged there. Many rockets were fired on us and we were wrecked. I can't even talk. Our situation is hard to describe or talk about.
The fighting has expanded even as Washington pushed for a peace deal between Israel and Hamas. Hamas says a heavy Israeli assault on Gaza City this week could wreck efforts to end the war, just as negotiations have entered the home stretch. Residents of Gaza City say this week's assault is comparable to the fiercest battle of the war. Gaza City was one of the first major targets in Israel's retaliatory operation after Hamas fighters rampaged through Israeli settlements on October 7th, killing 1,200 and taking more than 250 hostages, according to Israeli tallies. A week later, Palestinians began to flee the city after Israel called on residents to evacuate. By the end of 2023, an Israeli air and ground assault flattened what had been home to more than a quarter of the Gaza Strip's residents before the war. As Israeli forces moved south, residents who had fled began to return. Former Gaza City residents were joined by refugees from southern cities. But Israel says Hamas fighters returned as well, and residents such as Mona al-Husseini are again displaced.
This situation is very, very bad. I didn't even want to leave or go to the south, but necessity dictates. They forced us out. They gathered and forced us out.
Israel's assault has killed more than 38,000, according to medical authorities in Gaza. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Thursday said he remained committed to the Gaza ceasefire framework being negotiated and accused the Palestinian Islamist group Hamas of making demands that contradict it.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.